But it's not for me or you or any of us here to tell someone else what to do with what they earned.
Governments do that every single day. It's called taxes.
Yeah, I know. And the rich people in this country pay the vast majority of taxes.
Elon Musk just became the world's first trillionaire after SpaceX went public. And Scott Jennings showed up on Abby Phillips' show to defend it, the way he defends everything, by framing any concern about it as jealousy and envy. But what you're about to watch is the panel push back and make the argument that actually matters here. This is not about whether Elon Musk should be allowed to build companies. This is about the unelected influence that someone with this kind of wealth has over governments, over policy, over the daily lives of people who have no say in any of it. Let's watch the full clip and I'll break it all down on the other side.
Tonight, call it a million millions or 1,000 billions. Today, Elon Musk broke history, becoming the world's first trillionaire as his company SpaceX went public. SpaceX celebrated a record IPO trading today, with shares gaining 19%, lifting the company's market value to over $2 trillion. Now, Musk could also be compensated up to $7.5 trillion if SpaceX hits certain milestones, but the full payout depends on the company establishing a colony on Mars with 1 million permanent inhabitants. No big deal. To illustrate what Musk could do and buy with all of that money, here's Jimmy Kimmel.
If you tried to count out loud to $1 trillion, you would be counting until the year 33,736. $1 trillion is 10 billion $100 bills. If you stack them up, the pile would be almost 700 miles high, as tall as 123 Mount Everest. With that kind of money, Elon could buy every NFL team, all of them, and he'd still have $773 billion left, which he could use to buy all 30 Major League Baseball teams, every NBA team, every Wendy's, every Target store, the Beatles' entire music catalog. He could buy Nike, Macy's, and every Hyundai Elantra ever produced, and would still have $260 billion, $50 million left over.
Here's my confession. $1 trillion is not a real amount of money. It's just a projection.
I mean, of course, to you peasants, you've never touched it.
It's not real. It's not real.
Once you get to $1 trillion,
we can't hold $1 trillion in our hands, okay? But is it?
I would try.
Is it a moral failure, Carrie, for somebody to call themselves a trillionaire in this day and age?
I think here's the irony. I was listening to a podcast Elon was on not too long ago, and he said pretty soon with the advent of robots, there will be no manual labor. Pretty much money's going to be useless. We won't even need money because they're going to take over and it'll be cheap labor, and money won't even it'll be a cashless currency. We don't need it in this society. And here he is, right here, the very first trillionaire. So I was looking I wonder what he would do with $1 trillion, very much like what Jimmy Kimmel was just doing. In my mind, what could you solve? What kind of problems could you solve in our world? So just humor me for just a few moments. If you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you more than 2,700 years to spend $1 trillion. What you could effectively do with $1 trillion is get rid of global poverty. You could end world hunger. You could cure major diseases like malaria, and you could completely transition the global energy sector to renewables. The fact that he has this type of money only tells me that his power will be more prevalent, and that I cannot guarantee someone like this man would use his power for good.
Well, you've already seen it. I think the great irony in what you just said is that this is the same person who took a hatchet to USAID. And the end result of what we're seeing is that there are thousands of women and children who have died because of the cuts. America has become weaker because we've receded from the world order when it comes to our soft power, something that George W. Bush talked a great deal about. Elon Musk is a white supremacist who believes in things like
Oh, boy.
I wasn't going to finish the sentence.
You may need a lawyer when this is over, Bakari.
Can I finish the next sentence?
Honestly.
Who believes in things like the Great Replacement theory?
Honestly, Bakari.
So, yes.
What's wrong with what he said? It makes sense to me.
wait a minute. Does Elon Musk not believe in the Great Replacement theory? Is it not a racist theory that's been debunked?
I just think considering we have about 12 defamation cases in my office right now, before you start throwing things around like someone's a white supremacist. Now the senator from the Democratic senator who's got the SWAT sticker on his chest, I think then I would win that case.
Hold on. Actually, hold on. Let me just, first of all, I want us to stay on topic. I mean, Arthur, I would say There are people, and people, you just brought up Graham Platt, there are people who come on the show and call them a straight up Nazi. So that has happened.
But there's evidence of that.
And, well, Bakari is
Bakari
is arguing that he has evidence of racial bias. I don't want to litigate that.
If somebody believes in the great replacement, if somebody believes
want to litigate that,
if somebody believes in the great replacement theory, I believe I have every ground to stand on. But what I'm not going to do is allow someone just because they're a trillionaire. And this is the problem we have in this country, because somebody has $1 billion or somebody has $1 trillion. People all of a sudden are afraid to speak their truth. That is not going to silence me.
Scott Jennings, you've been shaking your head. You've been shaking your head since Kerry started talking. So
I've been all day long. I've been listening to liberals count and spend Elon's money for him. This envy, jealousy, hatred of success. Why is it immoral? Why is it wrong for somebody in our system, our capitalist system, in the greatest nation on earth, to go out and build a company, build companies, build technologies, go into space, aim to go put a colony on Mars, give internet to half the world, all the things he's doing? Why is any of this wrong or bad? Why would we want to discourage entrepreneurship? Why would we want to discourage anybody building anything? That is the nature of it.
That's a fair question, because Elon Musk has
system in the greatest nation on earth to go out and build a company, build companies, build technologies, go into space, aim to go put a colony on Mars, give internet to half the world, all the things he's doing. Why is any of this wrong or bad? Why would we want to discourage entrepreneurship? Why would we want to discourage anybody building anything? That is the nature of it.
That's a fair question, because Elon Musk has also, I mean, he's getting super rich, but a lot of other people are getting rich too. At SpaceX, people who are self-made.
That's the wrong frame. And I think that Scott Jennings is wrong. And let me tell you why. Because they're liberals, the liberals that you are lambasting right now, no one is saying, and I'm not saying, I can't say no one, but I'm not saying that I'm mad at him for being innovative enough to create an IPO that creates wealth for him or many others. What I am saying, however, is that there has to be some nature of altruism. Being an American, right? I mean, reading the Statue of Liberty, like, there is a certain level of give me your poor.
Well, do you have evidence? Do you have evidence that Elon Musk is not altruistic? I mean, I don't know. I mean, Michael Bloomberg, our former mayor, he's given money to every charity, every event.
I do think that when you compare Elon Musk's charitable giving to other uber wealthy people, whether it's Bloomberg, Gates,
Bill Gates,
Lorraine Powell Jobs, you name it, Warren Buffett, he's not high on the list. And he's now the wealthiest person on this planet. But Bakari was alluding to this, and so was Kerry. Ro Khanna says you got to tax them at 5%. In 1 year, you could fund free public college and trade school, $10 a day childcare, special needs education nationwide. Bernie Sanders says
how much is Ro Khanna
that Bernie Sanders says this is an argument that rich people, you don't have to be a trillionaire, but people who are making a lot of money should be subject to more Social Security tax, because right now they only pay it on less than $200,000 of income. So there are some proposals on the table for how, there are going to be a lot of people making buckets of money in this AI world, and there are going to be a lot of people put out of work. There are proposals on the table to how to make that work for society a little bit better.
Yeah, and I don't think what you were saying, Bakari, was wrong. Look,
you never think what he's saying is wrong, so that's
cool. Yes, she does.
She never disagrees with me. She disagrees with me all the time.
How much is someone allowed to have?
Okay, first of all, no one's jealous. I want to point that out.
Yes,
I'm not jealous. Well, not me. I'm not jealous of $1 trillion. Okay, sure, fine. I'm just saying that I know that he's not going to. I'm going to say, to your point, he has used his money for good, for advances. You're right. There are many wonderful things that he has done for society that we now look at and say, guess what? I can now do that. And you're right. Giving internet to people who didn't have internet, amazing, wonderful, good for you. But what I am saying is that I also know that he doesn't believe that he should do the things that we were just pointing out, such as changing what we need to change in this society.
Is he mandated to agree with you?
No, he's not mandated to agree with me, but there should be some checks and balances in this society. People should not be allowed to have $1 trillion. No human needs that much money, and you know that.
Do you think that these ultra wealthy people, I'm not talking about people with 10, 15, 20, even $100 million. I'm talking about people who are approaching $1 trillion. Do you think that there's more that they should be doing to give back to the societies that helped them get rich? Elon Musk and SpaceX benefited from tens of millions of dollars in government contracts and deals that allowed them to become the company that they are today. Should they be doing? Bakari, can I?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Scott, do you think that they should be doing more?
I think it's up to them. I think that many of them, and Arthur mentioned one, they do a lot. But it's not for me or you or any of us here to tell someone else what to do with what they earn.
Governments do that every single day. It's called taxes.
Yeah, I know. And the rich people in this country pay the vast majority of taxes. And I hear people today saying, oh, it's time that we tax the rich. Folks, I got news for you. We already tax the rich. They pay the vast majority of tax. And I think Elon Musk is the single largest taxpayer in America, and he'll be even bigger now. But is it for us to sit around and say there's a limit on what you can build, there's a limit on what you can earn, and it's now my job to tell you what to do with your money? Hell no.
Scott Jennings pulled out the same tired playbook he always does. You're jealous. You hate success. Why would anyone want to discourage entrepreneurship? And Bakari Sellers called it immediately. That is the wrong frame entirely. Nobody watching that panel is angry that SpaceX built rockets or that Starlink gave internet access to people who didn't have it. Those are genuinely impressive achievements, and the panel acknowledged them directly. The issue has nothing to do with building businesses. The issue is what happens to democratic governance and equal representation when one unelected individual has more money than many national governments combined. And here's the thing about Elon Musk specifically that Scott Jennings conveniently leaves out of his celebration of entrepreneurship. SpaceX was built in significant part on government contracts. Tens of millions of dollars in government money helped create the company that just produced the IPO that made Musk a trillionaire. So the next time someone wants to frame this as a pure story of private innovation happening in isolation from public support, remember that the American taxpayer helped build the launch pad, and now that same person has used that wealth to buy his way into government through Doge, sending his teams in to access private American financial data with no oversight, no accountability, and no public authorization. We still don't know exactly what information was accessed or what was done with it. And if Democrats win back Congress in the midterms, that needs to be a top priority investigation. Kerry Champion made a point that's worth sitting with. If you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you over 2,700 years to spend $1 trillion. With that kind of money, you could end global poverty, eliminate hunger, cure major diseases, and transition the global energy system to renewables. And yet, the argument from the right is that it would be wrong to ask this person to contribute more to the society that helped create the conditions for that wealth to exist. That position only makes sense if you believe that the function of democratic government is to protect the accumulation of private wealth rather than to serve the people. And here is the historical reality that Scott Jennings never wants to talk about. During what conservatives themselves called the golden era of American prosperity, the 1950s through the early 1980s, the top marginal tax rate on the highest incomes in this country ranged between 70 and 91%. 91% on income above a certain threshold. And during that period, the American middle class grew. Infrastructure was built, and the country invested in its own people at a scale that created the economic foundation that people like Elon Musk were eventually able to build on. The argument that taxing high incomes at higher rates destroys is growth falls apart immediately when you look at what actually happened during the decades when those rates were in effect. And the redistribution argument that Scott Jennings wants to dismiss as radical is actually very simple math. Senator O'Connor pointed out that taxing Musk at 5% in a single year could fund a free public college and trade, school, $10 a day childcare, and special needs education nationwide, 5%. At the scale of $1 trillion, that's not austerity, that's rounding error. The person paying it would still be so wealthy that no individual human being could meaningfully spend the remaining amount in multiple lifetimes. But here's the real reason this matters, and it goes beyond tax policy. When one person has more financial power than entire governments, they don't need to win elections to shape policy. They just need to fund the right politicians, own the right platforms, and have the right access to the right rooms. We have already watched Elon Musk use that access to enter the executive branch of the United States government without being elected by a single voter. We have watched him direct policy. We have watched his teams access data they had no legal right to access. And Scott Jennings wants to frame any concern about this as jealousy over someone building rockets. This has nothing to do with jealousy. It has everything to do with whether democracy can survive a world where private wealth at this scale can purchase the levers of government directly. The working class voters who keep electing politicians that protect these tax structures are being sold the fantasy that they too might one day be billionaires. That is the most effective lie in modern politics, and Scott Jennings knows exactly what he's doing when he repeats it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification. I'll see you in the next one.